1996 horror was never the same after Wes Craven Scream slashed its way onto our screens in 1996. It wasn't just another slasher movie, it was a smart, self-aware masterpiece that dared to poke fun at the genre while terrifying us at the same time. But how did Scream manage to pull this off? Let's dive in. Hey, horror! If you're as obsessed with 90s horror as I am, you know there's one movie that stands above the rest: Scream. Today we're breaking down why this film is so iconic, how it redefined the genre, and its lasting impact on modern horror. So grab your popcorn and let's get started. It basically is a classic whodunit, Scream at its core. The main character of the film follows Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, the high schooler trying to make sense of her mom's murder. As her friends are picked off by a masked killer called Ghostface one by one, it makes Sidney and us, in the audience, begin to ask, who's behind the mask? Where does Scream differ is from this toying with the horror rules. Remember Randy's famous line? You can never say, "I'll be right back," because you won't be. And then Stu immediately says, "I'll be right back." Iconic. It's this mix of humor and horror that keeps you hooked. Scream wasn't just a horror movie, it was a commentary on horror movies. Wes Craven and screenwriter Kevin Williamson created a world where characters were aware of the rules of the genre, and they either followed them or broke them. For instance, the line Sidney says, "What's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act," was an attack on lazy horror tropes. This was meta-humor at a level nobody had ever achieved in 1996. The movie takes place in the small town of Woodsboro, California, where high school student Casey Becker is home alone and receives a call from someone unknown. They talk about horror films until the caller becomes vicious and starts threatening her to end her life, and discloses that her boyfriend Steve is tied up on her patio. The caller starts demanding she answer questions concerning horror films to save his life, but she gives an inaccurate response regarding Friday the 13th, and Steve dies. Casey tries to flee the house, but she is stabbed to death in a yard by someone donning a ghost face mask, and her dissected corpse is hung upside down from a tree. The news media begin to arrive in the town as a police investigation is established. Teenager Sidney Prescott deals with the approaching anniversary of her mother Maureen's rape and murder, which was committed by Cotton Weary. Trauma has made her unable to consummate her relationship with her boyfriend, Billy Loomis. As her father Neil is traveling for work, Sidney waits at home alone for her best friend, Tatum Riley. She receives a call taunting her about Maureen's death and is attacked by Ghostface, who disappears just before Billy comes through her window. However, she becomes suspicious when he drops a cell phone, and he is arrested by Deputy Sheriff Dewey Riley, Tatum's brother. At the police station, Sidney is confronted by investigative journalist Gail Weathers, who claims that Maureen had several affairs, including one with Cotton, and that he was wrongly accused of her murder. Sidney stays at Tatum's home but receives another taunting call from the killer. Calls traced to Neil's phone are unfruitful in finding him. After being let go, Billy runs into Sidney at school and, while trying to placate her, compares his mother to Maureen's murder. School is closed in reaction to the murders, and Principal Himbry is stabbed to death in his office. In celebration of the closure, Stu Macker, Tatum's boyfriend, hosts a party at his secluded home. Dewey and Gail keep watch on the party in case the killer strikes again. As fellow high schooler Randy Meeks details the rules of surviving a horror film, Tatum is isolated in the garage by Ghostface, who crushes her with the garage door. Having witnessed Himbry's death, most of the guests rush to see his body hanging, almost running over Dewey and Gail, who inadvertently follow them into Neil's secret car. Billy arrives at the house to make amends with Sidney, and they finally have sex. Later on, they are surprised by Ghostface, who attacks Billy and stabs him. Sidney manages to escape from Ghostface, who kills Kenny, Gail's cameraman, and stabs Dewey when he returns. Gail, trying to get away in her van, crashes and is knocked unconscious. Sidney goes into the house and locks Stu and Randy outside while they are accusing each other of being the killer. A seemingly wounded Billy comes back and lets Randy into his place before shooting him in the shoulder, revealing him to be the killer and Stu as his accomplice. Billy confesses that they killed Maureen because the discovery of her affair with his father is what led to his mother leaving. The pair kidnapped Neil to frame him for their crimes and stabbed each other to portray themselves as the only survivors. They are interrupted by Gail's return, giving Sidney the opportunity to render Billy immobile and killing Stu by dropping a television set on his head. Billy tries to stab Sidney but is shot by Gale. After Randy comments that horror film killers revive for a final scare, Billy sits back up and Sidney shoots him in the head, killing him. As the sun rises, Neil is rescued, Dewey is carted off to the hospital in an ambulance, and Gale gives an impromptu news report about the night's events. After Scream, the horror genre had to evolve. It inspired countless imitators, some good like I Know What You Did Last Summer, and some not so much. It even spawned its parody series, Scary Movie. But perhaps the greatest impact is how it revitalized the slasher genre. The mid-90s audiences were simply tired of masked killers. Scream brought them back and made them smarter. So why does Scream still resonate nearly 3 decades later? It's the perfect blend of horror, humor, and heart. The characters feel real, the scares are legit, and the story keeps you guessing until the very end. Plus, Ghostface is just plain terrifying. It's not just a movie, it's a love letter to horror fans. And that's why we'll always answer the question. So, what's your favorite scary movie? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into classic horror. Until next time, stay spooky.